Peace, y'all. We're on the new fancy camera out here at the China shop. It's the 7th of August, day after voting day. I hope you enforced your freedom to vote and get out and did your primary voting. At least in Michigan, I don't know if you guys are other states, other places. It happens on a different day, different time. But I got out in a downpour, man. It was just downpouring like crazy. Yeah, so here we are. It's been 2 days of on the mower. Just beats the screws and rods in my back to death. So I took Monday off for sure. Tuesday voting, did some banking for the upcoming track day, end of the month, and with all that downpour and rain and everything, man, trying to keep the water off the canopy on outside the shop here. It was sagging. I was on my toes and never did get out here though. So, right to business. We got the cart on the ground. We've gone ahead and warmed up. I've talked to a few different people, so we warmed up the uprights there, the seat strut. Put a rag on the chassis, and then stuck this great big, that thing that's a 6-foot high piece of 1-inch square pipe. Put it in here like so. Trying to show you, right? You see that in between here, and then I stood on the chassis over here, and it just, when it was warmed up, it moved like warm spaghetti, like warm pasta, baby, like al dente pasta. Moved right over, seat goes right in now. Actually, we got a little bit of room. I didn't want it. Took some advice from Joe Wallace not to make it super tight, so you had to force the seat in. As you can see, there's a little space. We're right up against it here. So that also allows us to make some spacers, broad, big, 3-inch like type spacers, to spread the load of the mounting hardware, right? Because we don't want it, man, it's an expensive seat. I don't want to screw it up by putting the wrong type of hardware on it. What else we got going? Well, while we got it on the ground, we were messing around with the angle of the nose and the height of the nose. This is an old cart. This is an old cart. I'm going to run you over here real quick. This is unlike Joe's CRG, his new one or his old one. This lower tube is welded on. It's not two stubs that a lower bumper slides into, like what you're used to seeing. I altered this bumper, putting this tube on here, so it would fit this new nose, these mounts on this new nose, right? Let me show you something. This cart comes from an era of this type bodywork, right? If you look at this, I put magic marker marks on top of these bosses here that hold it onto the bumper, because if I'm hoping I can get this for you, if I can hold this thing still. You can see this, or get it in the light. The radius, the diameter of the tube is much smaller on the top of that there than it is on the bottom there, which doesn't make any sense unless you go look at Larry's cart back here and you see, I've showed you this front bumper before, right? It's got that cross tube across these two vertical upright tubes, and this is a much smaller diameter than the bumper, much smaller diameter even than the hoop on the bottom. So that nose is going to go right on Larry's cart. It was not going to work on here without hogging it out. I'm glad I didn't try to alter that thing, because then it wouldn't be good for nothing. So why is the nose off? These bosses here are adjustable. They bolt on, they're angled, they got a directional arrow, and you can adjust 3 different height settings. Now they're not in the same spot, Robert, you're right. They're not, one arrow's up, one arrow's down, or up and down. Why are we doing that? I wanted to show you the difference in diameter of this cart. So we took this back bumper, is this lower piece, right? We altered that back bumper, which was the same diameter as this top row or top hoop. That's the same as any stock standard late model bumper. It's the same depth, same width. I even got thanks to my buddy Sean giving me some measurements, I even got it the same as something you can buy right from Margay or any CIK type bumper. I even lined it up straight with the lower when I was placing this bar in place to tack it and weld it. So that's not the issue, but this bottom bar, this black bar that's part of the chassis, that's about an 18 millimeter tube. This the part I cut out of the rear bumper that I made that lower bit from is the same as the top. That's 20 millimeter. Now, this is why we got this thing sitting here. Here's your 20 millimeter tube. You have these raised up sections on either side of these adjustable bosses, right? And with it this way, let me get this so you can see it. You see the bevel or the angle on this thing. We can get in here to clamp it down. The reason it's not going is because, see, on this side you can't, right? It won't go in there. Now I thought, gee, do I got to make a spacer to go on there? You shouldn't have to. This stuff is all straightforward, right? It should bolt right on. But this also has a play in the attitude of the nose, so it can only go on this way, folks. It's not going on the other way. And on the bottom here, you can see there's no way it'll go in there. Maybe from the bottom of the mounting spot, but once you get on top of here, right, the nose itself, it's not going to go in there. And so that's what we've got going on over here. So what I'm doing, we had them this way to begin with before we ever put the cart on the ground and adjusted that seat strut. Remember, we had it, the nose was all the way down, which means they were all the way into those holes there. Now we got it all the way up, because once we put it on the ground, it was just too close. It was just too close to the ground. No matter what direction, I've tried these the other way around, all the way up, down, and in the middle. As you can see, I've had these things on and off a half a dozen times now. And I really had no difference in the attitude of the nose, because this surface of the nose itself is going to sit flat flush up against these surfaces here, I'm sorry, that I lined up with this straight edge when I clamped this lower tube that I put in place and tacked it and welded it. So it can't really angle, but I have no choice but to put these on with the arrows pointing toward the ground, so the top bigger 20 millimeter tube will fit and the smaller 18 millimeter tube fits. And it isn't too close to the ground, I don't think, but I think what I'm going to do is I'll show you in the next video. But here we are dealing with this CIK sprint cart stuff from different eras. You saw the absolute cluster I went through putting a 50 millimeter axle in this old 40 millimeter axle cart. So at this point, why should anything be easy, right? Anything worth doing is going to be tough, folks. Godspeed, God bless. This is part one. I'm going to bring you part two in a little bit once we get her back up in the air.